My name is Nadine, and I used to be the kind of person who believed in fairness. Hard work, loyalty, and integrity, those were my guiding principles. I spent years climbing the corporate ladder at Luminex Tech, a company that prided itself on innovation and cutting-edge artificial intelligence. It wasn't just any tech firm, it was one of those places where everyone felt like they were part of something bigger than themselves. At least, that's what we told ourselves. I worked there for 7 years, starting as an entry-level software engineer fresh out of college with big dreams and little direction. Over time, I carved out a niche for myself in AI development. My team created some of the most advanced algorithms the industry had ever seen. We weren't just building machines to do tasks faster, we were teaching them how to think, adapt, and evolve. It was exhilarating. But somewhere along the way, things changed. The culture shifted. People started whispering about layoffs long before anyone openly admitted it. And then came him, the new boss. His name was Victor Langley, and he arrived with all the fanfare you'd expect from someone parachuted into the CEO role after a massive merger. He didn't come from our world. He came from finance, private equity, the kind of place where people see companies not as collections of human beings, but as numbers on a balance sheet. From day one, his presence loomed over us like a storm cloud. He held meetings where he talked about efficiency and streamlining operations, which sounded innocuous enough until you realized he meant firing half the staff and outsourcing their jobs overseas. But this isn't about Victor yet. This is about me. Or rather, this is about how everything fell apart so spectacularly that I found myself sitting in my car late one Friday evening, staring at the glowing screen of my laptop while rain hammered against the windshield. On that screen was a command line interface connected to Luminex's central server cluster. And inside that cluster lived Prometheus, the AI system I had helped create. A system so powerful it could rewrite its own code, learn from mistakes, and even simulate emotions based on behavioral data. Prometheus wasn't just another tool, it was the crown jewel of Luminex Tech. Without it, the company would crumble. And right now, I had the power to destroy it. It started earlier that week when Victor called me into his office. I remember walking down the sleek glass hallway, heels clicking against polished floors, trying to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. Everyone knew by then that Victor was making cuts, and no department was safe. Still, I thought I'd be fine. I'd been instrumental in developing Prometheus. Surely, they wouldn't get rid of me. Victor sat behind his desk, leaning back in his chair like he owned the universe. His tie was perfectly knotted, his suit tailored within an inch of its life. He gestured for me to sit without looking up from whatever document he was reading. When he finally did glance at me, his expression was unreadable. "Nadine," he said, folding his hands together. "Thank you for coming." I nodded politely, though every nerve in my body screamed that something was wrong. "I'll cut straight to the chase," he continued. "As you know, we're restructuring certain areas of the business. Unfortunately, your position has been identified as redundant." Redundant. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. All those years, all that effort, reduced to a single cold term. I opened my mouth to protest, but he held up a hand to silence me. "Before you say anything, let me clarify. This isn't personal. It's purely a business decision. You've done excellent work here, Nadine. Truly. But moving forward, we need to focus on cost-effective solutions." Cost-effective solutions. God, I hated that phrase. It sounded so sterile, so devoid of humanity. Like the lives of people could be boiled down to spreadsheets and pie charts. What happens next? I managed to ask, my voice steadier than I expected. "You'll receive your severance package details via email," he replied smoothly. "Effective immediately, you're relieved of your duties. Security will escort you to collect your belongings." Security? Escort? For a moment, I felt like I'd stepped into some dystopian nightmare. Was I really being treated like a criminal? I wanted to argue, to demand answers, but I knew it wouldn't matter. Victor wasn't interested in hearing excuses or pleas. To him, I was already gone. So I left. Quietly, professionally. I packed up my things under the watchful eye of a security guard who probably felt more uncomfortable than I did. As I walked out of the building for the last time, I couldn't help but feel hollow. Betrayed. Angry. But anger can be a dangerous thing when paired with knowledge, and I knew exactly how dangerous mine could be. Back in my apartment later that night, I poured myself a glass of wine and stared blankly at the wall. My mind raced with thoughts of revenge. Not petty, childish revenge, but something calculated, something that would leave a mark. Something that would make Victor regret crossing me. Then it hit me. A memory surfaced from months ago, during one of those endless contract reviews HR forced us to slog through. There was a clause buried deep within my employment agreement, a clause I'd written myself after a particularly frustrating legal dispute involving intellectual property rights. Clause 47B. It granted me unilateral control over any project I directly contributed to if I were terminated without cause. At the time, I'd added it as a safeguard, thinking it might protect me if the company ever tried to steal credit for my work. Never in a million years did I imagine I'd actually use it. But now it felt like fate. If I invoked Clause 47B, I could legally take full ownership of Prometheus. Not just access it. I could dismantle it, delete it, erase it completely. Without Prometheus, Luminex would lose its competitive edge. Their stock prices would plummet. Investors would panic. Chaos would ensue. The idea terrified me almost as much as it thrilled me. Could I really go through with it? Destroy something I'd poured my heart and soul into? Something that had once represented hope and possibility? Yes. Yes, I could. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about sending a message to Victor, to Luminex, to every other corporation that viewed employees as expendable cogs in a machine. They needed to understand the consequences of their actions. They needed to feel the weight of what they'd done. By Monday morning, I'd made my decision. I drove to a coffee shop near Luminex headquarters, ordered a latte, and set up my laptop. Logging into the company network remotely wasn't difficult. I still had admin credentials saved on my personal device. No one had thought to revoke them yet. Within minutes, I was inside the server cluster, staring at the core files that powered Prometheus. For a moment, I hesitated. Deleting the AI outright would be irreversible. Once it was gone, there'd be no bringing it back. Even I wouldn't be able to reconstruct it fully. But maybe that was the point. Maybe destruction was the only way to ensure justice. I typed the first line of code, my fingers trembling slightly. Then another, and another. Each keystroke felt heavier than the last, like I was signing away a piece of myself. By the time I reached the final command, my heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear myself think. This was it. The point of no return. I hit enter. Nothing happened, at least, not immediately. The screen blinked, processing the request. Then, slowly, lines of text began scrolling across the terminal window. Files disappeared one by one. Entire directories vanished. Prometheus was unraveling before my eyes. And yet, despite the satisfaction bubbling beneath the surface, doubt crept in. What if I was wrong? What if this wasn't the answer? Could I live with the guilt of knowing I destroyed something so extraordinary? Before I could second-guess myself further, my phone buzzed. An email notification popped up on the screen. It was from Victor. Subject: urgent meeting request. My stomach dropped. How had he found out already? Had someone tipped him off? Or was this merely coincidence? Torn between curiosity and fear, I opened the email. Inside was a brief message. Nadine, please come to my office immediately. There are matters we need to discuss. Victor. Matters we need to discuss. Those words sent chills down my spine. Did he know what I'd done? Or was he planning something else entirely? Either way, I realized I couldn't stay hidden forever. Sooner or later, I'd have to face him, and whatever fallout awaited me. With a deep breath, I closed my laptop, grabbed my coffee, and headed toward Luminex headquarters. Whatever happened next, I was ready. The walk to Luminex headquarters felt surreal, like I was stepping into a dream, or maybe a nightmare. My mind raced with possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. Did Victor know about Prometheus? Was he calling me in to confront me, or worse, threaten me? Or was this some kind of trap designed to make me confess before they could pin everything on me? I tried to steady my breathing as I entered the building, nodding politely at security guards who barely glanced up from their screens. They didn't recognize me anymore, not really. To them, I was just another ex-employee, someone whose face had already started to fade into the background noise of turnover and restructuring. When I reached Victor's floor, his assistant, a young woman named Chloe, looked up from her desk, clearly surprised to see me. Nadine, she said, her voice tinged with hesitation. Mr. Langley is expecting you. Thanks, I replied, forcing a smile that probably came off as brittle. She gestured toward his office door, and I hesitated for only a second before knocking lightly. Come in, came Victor's clipped reply. Pushing the door open, I stepped inside. The room was exactly as I remembered it. Sleek, sterile, dominated by glass and chrome. Victor sat behind his desk, looking every bit the ruthless corporate titan. But there was something different about him today, an edge of tension, perhaps even unease. His usual air of supreme confidence seemed slightly frayed around the edges. Nadine, he said, gesturing for me to sit. Thank you for coming. I took the seat across from him, folding my hands tightly in my lap to hide their trembling. You wanted to see me? He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. For a moment, he studied me intently, his sharp eyes searching mine as if trying to read my thoughts. Then he spoke. Let's cut to the chase. We both know why you're here. My stomach twisted. He knew. Somehow he knew. There was no other explanation for the way he was looking at me now, with a mix of anger, disbelief, and something else I couldn't quite place. Resignation. Fear. I'm not sure what you mean, I said cautiously, buying time while my brain scrambled for a response. Denial felt weak, but admitting anything outright would be catastrophic. Victor let out a short, humorless laugh. Don't play dumb with me, Nadine. You think I don't know what you've done. What I've done? I echoed, feigning confusion. Inside, my heart was hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. If you're referring to being fired without cause after 7 years of dedicated service, then yes, I suppose I've done plenty. But beyond that, he slammed his hand down on the desk, startling me into silence. Gone was the polished executive demeanor. In its place was raw fury. Don't insult my intelligence. Your little stunt with Prometheus, it ends now. So he did know. And somehow, he connected the dots back to me. But how? Had someone traced the remote login to my device? Or had I overlooked some critical detail when invoking Clause 47B? Prometheus? I asked, keeping my tone deliberately neutral. What about it? Oh, spare me the act, he snapped. We've detected unauthorized access to the server cluster. Files are disappearing, critical files. Entire directories gone. Do you have any idea what kind of damage you're causing? Damage? That word stung more than I expected. Yes, I knew exactly what kind of damage I was causing. But hearing it framed in those terms made it feel bigger. More real. Like I wasn't just settling a personal score anymore. I was playing with forces far beyond my control. I'm sorry, I said, injecting as much sincerity as I could muster into my voice. But I'm afraid I don't understand what you're accusing me of. I haven't accessed the system since my termination. Victor narrowed his eyes, studying me like a predator sizing up its prey. Really? Because we traced the activity to an IP address registered under your name. Care to explain that? Damn. So they had tracked it. I should have anticipated this. Should have used a VPN, or routed the connection through a proxy server. Rookie mistake. But panicking wouldn't help now. I needed to stay calm, keep him talking, buy myself time to figure out my next move. That's impossible, I said firmly, meeting his gaze head-on. My credentials were revoked the day I left. Unless someone else gained access to my account. His expression darkened further, and for a split second, I thought he might leap across the desk and strangle me right then and there. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, exhaling sharply through his nose. Listen to me very carefully, Nadine. Whatever game you're playing, it stops now. If you undo whatever damage you've caused, and I mean all of it, you might walk away from this relatively unscathed. But if you continue down this path, he paused, letting the threat hang in the air between us. Let's just say the consequences will be severe. Severe. Another loaded word. What did that even mean? A lawsuit? Criminal charges? Blacklisting me from ever working in tech again? Or something worse? Something I couldn't even imagine? You're barking up the wrong tree, I said, standing abruptly. My legs felt shaky, but I forced myself to hold my ground. I didn't do anything to Prometheus. If there's a breach, you need to look elsewhere. For a moment, neither of us moved. We stared at each other across the desk, locked in a silent battle of wills. Finally, Victor broke the stalemate with a curt nod. Fine, he said, his voice icy. Have it your way. But mark my words, Nadine, if I find out you're lying to me, you'll regret it. With that, he dismissed me with a wave of his hand, turning his attention back to his computer screen as if I were already irrelevant. The message was clear. Get out of his sight before he lost what little patience he had left. I turned and walked out of the office, my mind spinning. As soon as I cleared the threshold, Chloe gave me a sympathetic glance, but I ignored her, focusing instead on putting one foot in front of the other until I reached the elevator. Only once the doors closed behind me did I allow myself to exhale. Safe for now. But for how long? Back in my car, I pulled out my laptop and opened the terminal window again. The deletion process was still running, though progress had slowed noticeably. Either Victor's IT team had caught wind of what was happening and was attempting to block the operation, or Prometheus itself was fighting back. The latter possibility sent a chill down my spine. Could an AI really resist being erased? Was it possible that somewhere deep within its neural networks, Prometheus had developed a survival instinct? No, that was ridiculous. It was just code, A sophisticated algorithm, nothing more. Even if it had been designed to mimic human behavior, it couldn't actually feel anything. Could it? Shaking off the thought, I focused on the task at hand. If Victor suspected me, and he clearly did, I needed to finish what I'd started before they managed to trace the activity back to me definitively. Once Prometheus was gone, I could disappear. Start over somewhere new, leave all this behind. But as I watched the lines of code scroll across the screen, doubt crept in again. Destroying Prometheus felt like burning down a house to kill a spider. Sure, it solved the immediate problem, but at what cost? All those hours, all that innovation, reduced to ash because of one man's greed. And yet, what choice did I have? This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about sending a message, to Victor, to Luminex, to anyone else who thought they could treat people like disposable assets. If I backed down now, I'd be complicit in everything they stood for. Resolved, I typed another command into the terminal, speeding up the deletion process. The screen flickered ominously, warning messages flashing in red. Something was resisting, fighting back. Whether it was human interference or something else entirely, I couldn't tell. But I refused to stop now. As the final files began to vanish, my phone buzzed again. Another email. This time, it wasn't from Victor. It was from an anonymous sender. Subject: You don't know what you're doing. My blood ran cold as I opened the message. Inside was a single line of text. Stop now, or you'll unleash something you can't control. Whoever sent it hadn't signed their name. But whoever they were, they knew exactly what I was doing, and they weren't happy about it. I stared at the anonymous email, my pulse racing. Who was behind it? Someone at Luminex? Or had Prometheus somehow communicated? The thought was absurd, yet the timing was too precise to ignore. Before I could overthink it, a sharp knock on my car window made me jump. 2 security guards stood outside, their faces grim. They motioned for me to step out. My stomach sank. Victor hadn't wasted any time. As they escorted me back into the building, I realized the deletion process was still incomplete. Prometheus wasn't gone yet, and neither was I. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: this wasn't over. Not by a long shot.